today we're gonna do a lesson on overlapping organic shapes. If you don't know what those are, don't worry, you'll find out in just a few minutes. This lesson, we're gonna focus on 3 different things. The first thing is it's gonna offer us an opportunity to practice our basic art skills. The second thing is we're gonna practice some different design elements. Specifically, we're gonna focus on repetition, balance, and unity. And the third and most important thing is that oftentimes when people create this style of art, they find a calmness and peacefulness, just like that feeling of happiness when they're creating this sort of simple but beautiful style of artwork. And I'm gonna give you some samples of some famous people that have done this style of artwork. The first one is a painter from a long time ago. His name is Henri Matisse. And he was a painter his whole life. About halfway through his life, though, he got really sick and had to have surgery. And it made him have to stay in bed and then later on in a wheelchair. And he was so sad. The doctors told him, buddy, you're never gonna paint again. And he was so sad, and he was a really talented guy. So he said, you know, I gotta find a way, even though I'm struggling, I'm gonna find a way to paint. And so he did a couple of really cool things that still allowed him to be a creator and a painter the rest of his life. So the first thing he did when he was healing in bed is he took a giant stick and attached some chalk to it so he could draw very simple shapes, right? Very simple lines, but still quite lovely. So that way he could still draw in bed. And then soon after he got a little healthier, he started creating something that now people call cutouts. And essentially they're just shapes, right? Cut out of paper. But then he used these lovely shapes that he created to design giant murals and giant stained glass that are in museums all over the world today even. So here's a little piece of one that this book was about. Very simple, right? But very lovely. I'm gonna put some links next to the video so you can check out some more of his artwork. Another artist that is using a way to combat sort of sadness with art is, her name is Yayoi Kusama, and she's a Japanese artist who's still creating artwork today. We talked about her a little bit last year when we did our obliteration hallway. If you remember from last year, we all got 2 stickers, and remember when we did this in the hallway? That was so much fun, right? We created this giant just circle hallway. Very, very fun. And she uses circles and other organic shapes to create pieces of art. And sometimes, remember, she even turns herself into a piece of art. Yeah. So you might be thinking, hey, wait, Mrs. Durant, you told me that she used art to combat like a struggle within, right? And when you look at her, it's not very obvious maybe what she struggles with. So Henri Matisse, we could see he was in a wheelchair, he was sick, we could actually see it. But it's different for Yayoi Kusama. She struggles a little bit instead with the way that her brain is connected. So inside, if you kind of think of your brain as a computer, most of our brains are connected one way, but hers is wired just a little bit differently than ours. And instead of being sad and alone, she sort of used that to show us the way that she thinks by creating these amazing pieces of artwork. And so now people wait like 8 hours in line just to see her installations. They're really amazing. I'm gonna post some of her stuff next to this too. So there was 2 examples of people finding happiness through the use of organic shapes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that for our lesson. Let's get our supplies ready and get started. Okay, let's first start with getting our supplies together. So I've got an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. If you don't have one this exact size, that's just fine. I wouldn't use a piece of paper that's too much smaller than this though, because I think you won't have enough space. You're also gonna need an index card. If you don't have an index card, that's fine. You can use any sort of scrap piece of paper or cardboard that is about this size, right? You're also going to need a pencil, an eraser, a pair of scissors, And if you have a Sharpie at home, a Sharpie would be really nice. And then you're gonna need something to color with. It doesn't have to be markers, but I've chose markers today. You can use whatever you'd like to color. You can even paint yours if you'd like. If you need to pause the video to get your supplies together, please go ahead and do that. I'm gonna put mine back up here because I can't possibly use everything all at once. So we're gonna create an overlapping design of organic shapes. And before we do that, let's talk a little bit more about what organic shapes are. Now, I think we all know what a shape is, right? When we're really young, we learn how to make marks on the paper, which usually are kind of like this, or maybe even like this. And then when you get a little bit more experimental, you can even do dots. And we know these types of things. These are lines, right? And then when I take these lines and I fully close them in, that is when they become a shape. And we know that certain shapes have different names, right? Like we know that this is a circle and that this is a square. Shapes that have clear edges and that often you need a tool to use to create the shapes are called geometric shapes. So that's all these shapes that you see down here. These are called geometric shapes. So when I say that you need a tool to use to create them, oftentimes you need a tracer or some sort of ruler or straight edge to make a perfect geometric shape. Now, organic shapes are what we're focusing on today. Organic shapes have a natural look and a flowy, sort of curvy appearance. They're usually irregular or asymmetrical and often are found in nature. So that would be a shape kind of like this. And most of the time, organic shapes don't have specific names. Now, we like to give them names, right? If I'm looking at this shape, I would maybe call that a puddle or popcorn or some sort of spill shape, right? We give them names because they kind of remind us of things. So when you're creating something with an organic shape, especially when you're using just that shape in a piece of art, it really gives a calming, soft, and natural effect. So that's what we're gonna do today for our project. Now, before I go on, I want to talk about one shape specifically, and that is the circle. I know we have a few students who are very particular and will go, hey, wait, Mrs. Durant, this circle shape looks pretty natural. This always comes up. So the thing about the circle is, this is Mrs. Durant's personal definition of where the circle lies, is that when you're drawing the circle by yourself, it is really hard to make a perfect circle. A lot of times the circles kind of come flat on one side, sort of like that, right? Or when we're drawing a circle, it kind of, oops, we didn't close it in all the way, right? So these would technically, for my technical artists out there, technically these would be considered organic shapes. Now, for a circle to be technically considered geometric, you would need to use a tracer. So I don't know if you can see the difference between these circles. Some of us might look at these shapes and go, oh goodness, they all look like circles to me. And if you're one of those people, that's okay. But if you're a technical person and you would like this definition very clear for you, if you make a circle with a circle tracer, it is considered geometric. But if you make a sort of wonky circle, that would be considered organic. Okay, so now that we know our shapes and we know where we're going with organic shapes, let's get started. You're gonna take your index card and probably you're gonna wanna use your pencil. Oh, you know what? It's hard for you to see that index card, isn't it? Let me use a blue index card so you can see. There we go, you can see that better. You're going to take your index card and draw a really big organic shape. well, as big as you can fit on there, right? I think I'm gonna do sort of a moon style. And remember, these shapes do not have to be perfect, right? That would be an organic shape. Doesn't really have a name. It kind of reminds me of things you'd see in nature, right? So there's one sample. You know what, I have a couple extra. Let me do a couple more here. You want to make it nice and big so it fills up the index card. You don't want it too small. So here's an example of what I mean. If you do one like this, whoop, way too small. It might take you until next quarter to finish this project. But a nice big shape is what you need. So here's 3 examples of organic shapes. You can make up any kind of organic shape you'd like. I'm going to use this guy right here. So what you're going to do is cut your organic shape out. When you're cutting, it's usually easier to turn your paper instead of your scissors. The cool thing about organic shapes is they don't have to be perfect. So whatever you draw is just right. All right, so I've got my organic shape. Okay, I'm gonna flip it over so you can't see the black anymore. So what we're gonna do is we're going to trace this shape onto this piece of paper. I'm gonna do it about 15 to 20 times, okay? Now when you're tracing, what you're gonna wanna do is use your pencil, and I would probably try to do 2 things. Draw lightly, just in case you need to erase, and try to hold your pencil up and down as much as possible. When you hold your pencil kind of sideways when you are tracing, it has a tendency to go underneath your tracer, and that can be really frustrating. So if you try to hold your pencil kind of straight up and down, which is maybe hard, when I do that it's hard for you to see, right? So if you hold it straight up and down, it doesn't slide underneath. I'm also not pressing hard, so that's gonna be another helpful thing. So you can put these shapes, I'm gonna turn it, I'm gonna flip it, I'm gonna put it everywhere, and sometimes they're gonna be touching, and sometimes they're going to be, boop, overlapping. So when this shape goes on top into that other shape's space, that is called overlapping. Now, if this is a really tricky thing for you to do, what you might want to do is ask a parent or a brother or a sister or a friend to hold your tracer down, your organic shape down, while you trace around it. Okay, so I've got 4 here, kind of organically overlapping. Do you notice when it overlaps, it actually makes a new organic shape? So even though we're drawing the same shape over and over, as we start to overlap, new shapes are coming up. Now you can make it so all of your shapes are on the paper 100% fully, but something that might be kind of fun is to put your shape halfway off your paper, okay? You see how like some of this is not going to be on my piece of art? That way it kind of looks like your whole piece of paper is sort of extending, and your artwork it has no limits, right? We're going outside of the bounds of the paper. And you can even put just a little guy right here. All right. There we go. We're starting to get something here. All right, so I don't think I have 15 to 20 shapes yet, but that's okay. I'm gonna show you the rest of the process because I don't want my video to be 30 minutes long. So when you are finished tracing your shapes, what you're going to do, if you have it, you're going to take your Sharpie next, okay? And you're going to outline or trace your pencil lines, okay? Now, when we say outline or trace in art, what that means is to actually put your Sharpie right on top of the pencil lines. It doesn't mean to go on the outside, it means to go right on top, okay? So let me show you some samples here, okay? I have one that I have done, and this organic shape is the shape I did on this, and I did like 15 to 20 different shapes. It goes on, it goes off, right? After that, I started to trace with a Sharpie. When I was all done tracing with a Sharpie, kind of starting to look like a piece of art, right? You're gonna wanna take, before you go to the next step, take an eraser and erase any extra pencil lines that you have. There's always gonna be a little bit of extra guys sticking out there. So you're gonna wanna erase those extra pencil lines. After that, you're going to color it in. You can see I've done most of this one already. You can use any color you'd like. For me, I, on this one, said to myself, I'm gonna color each shape a different color, and the challenge I gave myself was to not let any shape that was one color touch the same color on the next shape. So what I mean by that is, if I did this one red, then I wouldn't do this shape red. I wouldn't do this shape green either. Does that make sense? We'll see. I can do it blue though, because there is no light blue right next to here. So I think we all have our own technique, but for me, when I am coloring in a shape, what I like to do is outline first. And when I'm outlining the shape, I like to use the tip of my marker. When I go to color in the shape, I use the side part of my marker. And it goes quite quick. And then I can go back and use the tip again to get those little spaces. This portion will take you quite some time. It will take you maybe a couple of sessions. If you start to feel yourself when you're coloring, maybe getting sloppy, it maybe means that it's time to take a break. Don't feel like you need to finish this all in one session. After you color it, you can be finished, or you can take it to another level. What I decided to do, just to give you an option, you do not have to do this, is I took all of my purple shapes and I put purple glitter on all my purple shapes. Can you see that? Just to kind of, I don't know, make it just a little bit more extra. So if you don't have glitter at home, you don't have to use this, this idea. It's just a little idea. Another thing you could do is to take one color, like all of the yellows, and draw patterns with your Sharpie inside. That would make them pop out too. This is a really fun project that will make you feel happy when you do it. I promise. It's a really nice, fun activity. I hope you enjoy it, and you email me if you have any questions, and happy creating, friends. Bye.